Cast Away, film directed by Robert Zemeckis. World premiere of the film took place on December 7, 2000 in the USA, but the majority of movie lovers from other parts of our planet watched the film already in 2001. It was then that the premiere screening took place in world cinemas. The screenplay for the film was written by William Broyles, Jr., who in order to write the script personally on his own initiative went to a certain remote island. And there for 2 weeks he was in self-isolation, and wrote a script. Just like the hero of his story Chuck Noland, he ate fish, made a fire. Williams said that this is how he got inspiration, and tried to understand the world of a person who was far from civilization. This approach of the author at least deserves respect. In the studio of Hollywood also appreciated the actions and script of William. Initially in the studio Castle Rock looked at the project. They wanted to see Rob Reiner as the director of the film, and invite Ralph Fiennes for the leading role of Chuck Noland. Also on the list of candidates called to be stranded on a desert island was actor Kevin Spacey. The script of the film really interested him, but then Kevin was very busy with other film projects. Having signed a contract to participate in the filming of Pay It Forward, as well as in the film KPAX, another candidate was Kevin Costner, but he didn't even have to go to the screen test, since the rights to the production were acquired by 20th Century Fox and DreamWorks. They immediately appointed Robert Zemeckis as the director of the film, and he in turn put forward mandatory conditions for fulfillment. Tom Hanks will play the lead role in his film, and the studio bosses accepted this condition without hesitation. Earlier Tom Hanks played the lead role in the Oscar-winning Robert Zemeckis film Forrest Gump. Michelle Pfeiffer was considered for the role of Nolan Kelly's Lady Love. She was Zemeckis' favorite. He really wanted to see her in his film, but Michelle was not interested in this role. Then the studio agents turned to Sharon Stone, but she also refused to participate in the project. After reading the script, Sharon said, "This movie has a leading role of Tom Hanks and another important role, but it does not belong to Kelly but and a volleyball." After Sharon refused, the role was approved Helen Hunt, who had earlier won an Oscar for Best Actress in the film As Good as It Gets. She really liked the script and Kelly's small role, and the volleyball as a character competitor didn't bother her at all. Initially the scenes in the FedEx Foreign Office were planned to be filmed in Poland in Warsaw, then they considered the option with Hungary, which like the Polish option was rejected, and they decided to shoot in Russia in Moscow. After the film's premiere, Tom Hanks recalled his conversation with his agent and producer Steve Starkey. In the early 90s, after the collapse of the USSR, a film crew from Hollywood was planning a trip to Russia to shoot my film there. Starkey warned them, "Have you completely gone crazy? In Russia now it's like in our Chicago in the 30s, scary to go out on the street. What kind of filming can you do in that country?" Well, what kind of filming? Very specific filming. Despite the producer's warning, then the entire film crew flew to Moscow, which shot the film Police Academy. Mission to Moscow. The Cast Away film crew arrived in Moscow and began filming in January 1999 year.
We are in Moscow. Filming on Red Square. It is very cold in the city today.
But the translator read to Zemeckis and Hanks and translated the article in the newspaper. The news about the arrival of the film crew from Hollywood had already been published. And about the filming of the movie Cast Away, Hanks himself called the filming in Moscow part of a grand adventure production of the movie Cast Away, talked about how he would really like to learn the Russian language, noted the hospitality of the Russians, but once again mentioned the cold, calling Moscow in January the coldest city of all those he had ever visited. Filmed on Red Square and in the FedEx office in Moscow, or more precisely in the company's warehouse. Extras actors were recruited here. It is interesting that in Moscow was also filmed the scene of Nolan's conversation with the police. He asked them to be more attentive during the loading of the parcels and not to allow strangers to approach the cars. Chuck also had lunch in one of the Moscow restaurants, trying out Russian cuisine, but unfortunately for some reason Zemeckis ended up deleting these already small scenes during editing. Next, the authors of the film had to make a responsible choice of the main location of the film, uninhabited island on which Chuck Noland, the producer of the film, yes, the same expert on crime reports of Russia of the 90s Steve Stark, suggested filming on the Hawaiian Islands. There are enough islands, take your pick and don't have to fly far, but in the course of an active and long search, was decided to film in the Republic of Fiji, on an island with the sonorous name of Manyariki. The island is indeed uninhabited, and after the premiere of the film it became very popular with tourists who visited there, and at least for a while they could feel like Tom Hanks' hero. The producers wanted to film in the Hawaiian Islands because they know how to count money, because the Hawaii option was less expensive, but the creative soul and vision of the filmmakers chose Fiji. They liked this island so much. The film crew moved here in the spring of 1999. And yes, here Tom no longer had to complain about the cold, as the film producers and personally Robert Zemeckis claimed they did not receive a single cent from the FedEx company, the name of which appears in the film very often. FedEx in turn provided the creators of the film free filming in the warehouse of their office in Moscow, as well as cars and an airplane. After the premiere of the film, having learned about this original and strange agreement, journalists were ironic. Fly by plane FedEx, and you will lose not only your packages but also possibly spend many years on a desert island. The plane crash scene was filmed in the studio pavilions, the episode when the plane suffers a disaster and plunges into the depths of the ocean, filmed in a specially created pool of enormous size. Then Hanks swam to his heart's content, because in some parts of the filming of the crash he refused to use a stunt double. This gave the operator the opportunity to take plenty of close-ups. Tom, the pilot's corpse that washed up on the island where Nolan was. This is a doll specially made for the filming of the movie. After Chuck buried the pilot, he wrote his name on a rock nearby. They say the inscription was actually made not by Tom but by someone from the film crew, still preserved on the island. The first attempt to swim away was filmed near the small island of Namotu, located in the east of Fiji.
In preparation for filming, several members of the film crew were left on a desert island for several days. They had to survive with the equipment that Tom Hanks' hero got. The most difficult things for them were making a fire, opening a coconut, and catching fish. All of this was used in the picture.
The thing is that near Namotu in the rough ocean was more suitable for filming this episode. Originally in the script of the film the ball was from an American football, that is a completely different form. This did not suit Zemeckis at all and he adjusted the script, so in the film appeared the well-known volleyball ball from the manufacturer Wilson. Years later this ball was called the most famous volleyball in the world. Of course all thanks to the film. Riding the wave of popularity of the film Cast Away, Wilson released an exclusive ball with the original title of the film and a bloody handprint of Hanks. The composer of Cast Away was the famous Alan Silvestri. He wrote only 15 minutes of musical accompaniment to Cast Away, and all because Zemeckis decided that his film will only have sounds of nature and Hanks lines. In one of the episodes of the film Tom Hanks was engaged in improvisation. He throws a coconut which bounces off a rock like a soccer ball. At first, Zemeckis considered this a ridiculous occupation, but later during editing he decided to include this episode in the film. They say a person in despair is capable of actions that defy logic, and will try any option to achieve his result. During the filming of the episode where Chuck Noland explores the island barefoot, Tom actually hurt his foot on the rocks. There were no serious consequences. The actor received timely medical care, but subsequently Tom sailed the expanses of the island in universal sandals, to avoid unnecessary injuries. In the movie scene where Noland hurts his leg, the blood is not real.
Most of the night scenes were actually filmed during the day. Darkness and the night sky were added in post-production.
The episode in which Hanks first tries to leave the island after seeing a ship in the distance, so in it Zemeckis personally corrected the script. According to the original idea of the screenwriter, Nolan seeing the ship immediately throws himself into the ocean and begins to swim. He tries with all his might to catch up with the ship. Naturally he can't do anything, and he returns to the island exhausted. Zemeckis called this attempt suicide. That in that case Hanks's character would have little chance of staying alive. As a result of the change in scenario, Nolan attempted to leave the island in an inflatable rescue boat. The rain we see in the frame is the work of special rain installations, which were incredibly difficult to deliver to the island. That is why, later, the rain scenes on the island were almost completely abandoned in the film. According to the plot of the film, Chuck Noland is a fan of Elvis Presley's work. In one of the scenario versions in the parcel there was a player with an Elvis disc. the player mysteriously didn't break down while making a long voyage in boxes across the ocean. And Nolan, until the batteries died, listened to his favorite artist. But later this fantastic idea was deleted from the script. In general, the authors of the film compiled a rather impressive list of things that could have been in the packages that washed up on the island where Chuck was. They even turned to survival experts, who made their list of things. In the original script of Broyles were skates, videotapes, and a ball.
While preparations were underway for the filming of the episode, Tom Hanks personally tried to make fire, in the same way that his hero used in the film. Spent an hour of time Tom. But alas, it was useless. He never got around to starting a fire. Filming of the movie was suspended for almost a year, during which time Tom Hanks had to lose a lot of weight. Initially he was given 5 months to achieve the miracle of losing weight. But later this decision was considered dangerous for the actor's health. And extended the term. And that's 11.5 months, almost a year. Tom Hanks lost weight and dropped 20 kilograms during this time. At this time Tom was on a strict diet, and was forced to give up a number of his favorite delicacies. Tom told me, "Yes, it was not easy, because I always loved to eat tasty and varied food." Also Tom during this time grew thick hair and a beard. That is, what we see in the frame is not a wig and makeup but everything natural. During the time that Hanks was restricting himself in food and losing weight, Zemeckis and his team did not sit idly by but made the film What Lies Beneath. It is symbolic that the main female role was played by Michelle Pfeiffer, previously seen from the role in the film Cast Away. Zemeckis did get the chance to work with the actress. In the film's script, dialogues were written for the volleyball Wilson, from which Nolan communicated. The text had to be read by someone from the film crew. This was done so that it would be easier for Hanks to communicate with him, but in the process of filming this was not necessary, since Tom did an excellent job without a prompter, communicated excellently with Wilson. There were several variations in the script of how Nolan throws the volleyball, and then searches for him, for a long time. Zemeckis gave him the opportunity to choose in which scene exactly he would throw out Wilson in a fit of rage, and then, after cooling down, he will begin searching. Tom Hanks said that to prepare for this role he initially surrounded himself with books on psychology, carefully studied articles about the behavior of a person who tries to survive in wild natural conditions. But at one point, he took and put all this reading aside and said to himself, "I have a script and I will create my own independent from book models of Chuck Noland." The raft on which Chuck managed to leave the island was created by the efforts of several people from the film crew, there in Fiji. 5 days of painstaking work, and at the first attempt to launch it into the water the raft fell apart. The filmmakers had to look for craftsmen among the local residents, and they really helped, in general. The raft that Zemeckis wanted to see took a long time to create, having suffered failures, using collective intelligence. But in the end they achieved what they wanted, according to rumors. The remains of Nolan's floating craft are still in one of the museums in the capital of Fiji, in the city of Suva, in the memorable scene, when Nolan and Wilson parted forever. Well, during filming the volleyball refused to float away from Tom. Filmed when there was a strong wind, and the current was changing, and the ball would float very slowly, or would even return to Hanks. Zemeckis said that in some episodes it got to the point of being funny. Wilson didn't want to part with Tom. The episode was filmed for days. Hanks swam and screamed to his heart's content. The scene is serious, and Tom was definitely not funny. For Wilson balls were used for the filming of the movie. In one of the versions of the script, the heroine Helen Hunt waited for Nolan. That is, all this time she did not stop believing that her beloved was alive. She, together with the rescuers, plied the endless expanses of the ocean, waited and hoped that he would return. But later they decided to abandon such a fairy tale idea. An adult woman must accept what happened and move on. This is how the scene appeared in which Nolan's friend tells him that the funeral took place, and there was even a coffin. In the second version of the script, Kelly was married, but as soon as she found out that Chuck was alive, she met him and immediately left her husband, and left with Chuck, whom she had always loved, and still could not live without him. But this idea of the script was also crossed out and discarded as unnecessary. Manager of 20th Century Fox Studio Harry Stockton told how they received letters from fans of the film, some of whom furiously scolded the authors for the fact that in the movie they didn't leave Chuck and Kelly together. In the first version of the script, Chuck, played by Tom Hanks, was talking not to Wilson but to himself. He had room for good Chuck and bad Chuck. Tom Hanks really wanted to work on Cast Away, because in his opinion most people, when asked about survival on a desert island, only remember Robinson Crusoe. The flight number of the plane that crashed in the film was a real flight at the time of filming, the route of which went from the USA to Malaysia. It's amazing, but as Robert Zemeckis claims, not a single cent was received from FedEx's sponsorship assistance. Just that when the filmmakers approached them with a request to use the name, they did not object. Later, the head of FedEx said that the company, thanks to the film, received a big boost in its development on the international arena because brand recognition has increased. FedEx job applications up 30% after premiere. One of the 3 volleyballs used in the filming went under the hammer for $18,400. For the volleyball, Wilson wrote dialogues so that it would be easier for Tom Hanks to communicate with him. Off-screen, they were read out by a specially hired person when Tom Hanks and Helen Hunt are sitting on the couch. In one of the scenes on the wall, you can see a diploma related to sailing. This explains some of the knowledge that Tom Hanks' character demonstrated while preparing to escape from the island. To write a movie plot more believably, the film's head writer William Broyles Jr. spent a week on a deserted island. He made a fire, collected coconuts, and ate fish. On the shore, he found a volleyball, which later also ended up in the plot of the film. The scriptwriters wondered how to tell about the film in an interesting way, if it is based on the arrangement of life on the island and conversations with the volleyball. Then William Broyles remembered how in his youth with other screenwriters, he tried to come up with the most concise story with a minimum of words. Throughout most of the scenes where the life of people close to Nolan was shown, the moments when he was barely surviving. All concentration is only on Hanks' performance, which showed the madness of loneliness and the desire to overcome it. The greeting card that Tom Hanks' characters read on the island was written by director Robert Zemeckis. Zemeckis was personally present during the editing of the film, and it was he who insisted on adding soundtracks to individual episodes filmed on the island. The director heard in the background an extraneous noise coming into the frame, which was emitted by yachts with tourists that were then near the island. As the editor Arthur Schmidt admitted, he personally had not heard anything like that. But Zemeckis thought differently. His sensitive hearing heard everything, and the editor had to spend 2 weeks removing all unnecessary elements from the film's soundtrack. At the same time, trained hearing. Many of you, after watching the film, probably were tormented by the question of what was in that unopened parcel with the wings depicted on it. The author asked the question, why in the final of the film they did not dare to answer the question of what is hidden in the mysterious parcel. Screenwriter William Broyles said that in one version of the script there was a bottle of sauce and a letter from a certain woman who wrote to her husband and sent him her favorite sauce. In the letter she confesses how lonely she is, and that without him, the whole world seems to have turned upside down. She found herself isolated, completely alone without her beloved man. Well, the other one, it is the main version of the script, the one that we saw in the film. Chuck never opened the package and delivered it to its destination years later. Zemeckis said after the film's premiere that the package contained a waterproof cell phone, which allegedly ran on solar batteries. Journalists and many viewers perceived the director's response as malicious irony. I can't say anything about malice, but Robert really does have a sense of humor. A little later, a commercial was ordered and filmed at the FedEx company, in which Chuck Nolan delivers a package with wings to a woman and asks her what's inside the package. She tells him, so nothing particularly interesting. Mobile phone, folding fishing rod, and GPS navigator. Hanks has been asked many times where he thinks Nolan went and how his fate turned out. In 2010, on Christmas Eve, while on one of the TV shows, Tom finally answered this question. I think everything worked out well for him, even excellent. What happened affected him and made him a stronger and more characteristic person. He had a lot of directions to choose from, but Nolan decided to return to the girl to whom he delivered the parcel that saved his life. He stayed to live with her, and now they live together in perfect harmony and play volleyball with Wilson balls. The episodic role of that very girl was played by the famous country singer Grammy Award winner Laurie White. In January 2018, the singer passed away. Cancer, a merciless disease, cut short the life of Laurie White. She was 52 years old. The film had a tremendous impact on its followers. For example, Jeffrey Lieber said that it was the film Castaway that inspired him to create the popular at one time series Lost, with a budget of $90 million. The advertising campaign took up another $20 million. The film grossed a total of almost $430 million worldwide. Serious as producer Jack Rapk admitted unexpected success, Zemeckis was told before filming that this project was obviously doomed. They say that the current viewer needs a different kind of cinema, and this is not the format. The mass viewer will not go to such a film. How cruelly they were mistaken. The film has an overwhelming majority of positive reviews from the critical brothers, and from the impressed spectators. Tom Hanks won a Golden Globe for his role as Chuck Nolan. in the nomination for Best Actor, and now, years later, Castaway still stands as one of the best movies in the genre. As screenwriter Broyles joked after the premiere, Robinson Crusoe has a worthy competitor.